It appears that Virginia Thomas, the wife of conservative Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, has sent some text messages. Some interesting text messages to Mark Meadows, who is, of course, Donald Trump's former chief of staff, and these were related to overturning the 2020 election. Of course they are. So now this is a batch of text messages, about 29, that were obtained by the Washington Post and CBS News. And they detail how Thomas was pressuring the White House to essentially steal the election from Joe Biden, along, of course, with Donald Trump. So now Virginia Thomas, she goes by Ginny, whatever. I don't really care. But I'm going to read some of those messages, and we're going to do some analysis on those messages. And so let's do it. So now on November 10th, after news organizations had projected Joe Biden the winner based on state vote totals, Thomas had wrote Mark Meadows, quote, "Help this great president stand firm. Mark, you are the leader. With him, with him who is standing for America's constitutional governments at the precipice, the majority knows Biden and the left is attempting the greatest heist of our history." Now, of course, let me just start there by saying that is projection. It is actually Republicans that were attempting this heist. The Green Bay sweep, of course, was to try to take the legitimate election of Joe Biden and reverse it and give Donald Trump the presidency. But anyway, let's move on. Meadows wrote back to Thomas on November 24th, quote, "This is a fight of good versus evil. Evil always looks like the victor until the King of Kings triumphs." So there's some religious fundamentalism in there. "Do not grow weary in well-doing. The fight continues. I have staked my career on it. Well, at least my time in D.C. on it." Thomas replied, "Thank you. Needed that. This plus a conversation with my best friend just now. I will try to keep holding on. America is worth it." So look, I think it's important to point out like how they're viewing this. These are, again, private messages that were released to the January 6th committee by Mark Meadows shortly, of course, before he stopped cooperating with the J6 committee. Now, the framing here is good versus evil. Understand, it's not just about Democrats versus Republicans. It's not about like, oh, I think I believe in tax cuts for the rich and less regulation for corporations. No, they're not fighting about this. So you understand, like, this is where some on the left are like, no, you don't understand. The only differences that we have here are, corporations, and that's the real difference here. The role of government and tax. No. For them, this is literally a battle between Jesus and Satan. That's what it is. And of course, she's a lunatic. She's a QAnon supporter, and it shows you in this. Okay, and so the reason, of course, that it's important to point that out is that there are people that believe in these nonsense conspiracy theories. You will not be able to reason with them when they literally think that you are Satan and that you are not only are you Satan, you're working for, working with Satan or for Satan, and you're part of this plot to take over the planet and then enslave the children and drink their adrenochrome. That's what this is. They're way too far gone. You are not like going to reason with those people. All right. So, and of course, you believe in the QAnon conspiracy, you're going to believe in all sorts of other conspiracies. All right. So now, speaking of insane people with their conspiracies, here you have Thomas messaging Mark Meadows to talk about how she wants Kraken lawyer Sidney Powell to be the face of Donald Trump's legal team. So look, Sidney Powell, she did not have a Kraken. She had a floppy dead fish, and basically had said all sorts of insane defamatory things against Dominion and Smartmatic. And so, it goes to Hugo Chavez. They created the software. They steal the election. Bonkers stuff. But again, Ginny Thomas is bonkers. And that's obvious. But that's not really the big story here, her being insane. I think we already kind of knew that. But no, the real story is about how she had access to Trump's inner circle, not just Mark Meadows, and was trying to use her influence in order to get this case to the Supreme Court, where again, not only use her influence, but there are people that were trying to use her influence as well, being married to Clarence Thomas, to get this in front of the Supreme Court. So, all right. Before I get to that, and understand that this is the goal of Trump. This was the goal of people around Trump after the election. We can get this overturned if we take it to the Supreme Court. In fact, here's Donald Trump talking on the morning after the election, telegraphing his plans.
This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We want the law to be used in a proper manner. So we'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list, okay? It's a very sad moment. To me, this is a very sad moment, and we will win this, and as far as I'm concerned, we already have won it.
All right, so let me just be clear. They didn't find ballots. They just count the ballots that were already there. We're not like finding them in real time. No, they're counting them. Nonetheless, okay, oh, we already won. We won this thing. No, you didn't. Very, very obvious. But anyway, he says, we're going to go to the Supreme Court. Well, guess who's on the Supreme Court? Virginia Thomas's husband. And not only that, but you also have Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch, all of these people who were appointed by Donald Trump and who Trump and his loyalists believe owed Trump a favor. That's literally what they believe. Whether or not and we'll get to that, of course, some of the decisions on this. But Trump literally believed, I appointed them to the Supreme Court, so obviously they owe me. They owe me because I put them in that position. So of course they're going to have to overturn democracy and just give me the presidency because I want it. But now, Thomas, of course, publicly denied any conflict of interest between his wife's activism and his work, of course, on the Supreme Court. Here's what she said to the Washington Free Beacon, quote, Clarence doesn't discuss his work with me, and I don't involve him in my work. Now, does anybody believe that? No, I don't. I don't believe that. Look, I wouldn't believe that if it were a Democratic person, right? And the Democrat, of course, you talk about work. That's like half. Okay, obviously, in a marriage, half of what you talk about is what happened at work today. Okay, being married for over 10 years now, right? I know. I talk about work all the time. My wife talks about work all the time. All right, and so like that's just a conversation that comes up. I do not believe that Clarence Thomas does not discuss his work with his wife. You're kidding me. Now, as for Thomas doesn't speak very often. He's actually made very few public statements about the 2020 election. However, his actions speak louder than words. In February 2021, when the Supreme Court rejected these election challenges filed by Trump and his allies, Thomas wrote a dissent. Very, very rare. He said that it was, quote, baffling and inexplicable that the majority had decided against hearing these cases, these challenges to the 2020 election. Interesting. Very, very interesting. You know what that sounds like? Conflict of interest. All right, there's more. Here's another interesting thing that we get from these messages. Meadows, turns out, might not be Thomas's only contact inside the Trump White House, at least that week. On November 13th, she texted Meadows about her outreach to Jared, potentially a reference to Jared Kushner. Now, that's, of course, Donald Trump's son-in-law and senior White House advisor, again, within the Trump inner circle. Here's what she wrote. Just forwarded to your Gmail an email I sent to Jared this AM. Sidney Powell and improved coordination on how now will help the cavalry come. Fraud exposed and America saved. Interesting. The messages provided by the House Select Committee do not show response by Meadows, and Kushner, of course, did not respond to a request for comment. On November 19th, Thomas also at one point offered Meadows advice on managing West Wing staff. Suggestion, you need to buck up your team on the inside, Mark. The lower level insiders are scared. How would she know that? Fearful or sending out signals of hopelessness versus an awareness of the existential threat to America right now. You can buck them up, strengthen their spirits. And on January 10th, 4 days after the Stop the Steal rally Thomas was at, she had attended, and the attack on the Capitol, which she didn't take part in the actual attack on the Capitol, but she was at the Stop the Steal rally. In that message, Thomas expressed support for Meadows and for Trump, and directed anger at Vice President Mike Pence, who had refused, of course, to block the congressional certification of Biden's victory. Quote, "We are living through what feels like the end of America," Thomas wrote to Meadows. "Most of us are disgusted with the VP and are in listening mode to see where to fight with our teams. Those who attacked the Capitol are not representative of our great teams of patriots for DJT." Of course, they actually are. Yes, I think they are representative. Those are the people, again, who actually did walk down to Pennsylvania Avenue, whereas Donald Trump fucked off to the bunker and went and hid and watched the chaos unfold. By the way, he did not try to stop that chaos. That's very important too. He watched it unfold on TV, and it took him hours. And, you know, we saw the exchanges. I talked about them before. You even had Sean Hannity being like, "Donald, do something. We got to do something. Trump is going to make us look really, really, really bad. Really bad. You got to do something." And it's not just him. You had numerous people that were begging Trump, "Please, for God's sakes, do something. Do something." And Trump's like, no, I don't feel like doing something. And then, of course, when he finally got enough pressure to go out and talk to them, what did he say? He said, "You're very special. I love you. You're very special. You're tremendous people. But you need to go home, and you need to go home in peace. That's what you need to do. Okay? But I love you." I mean, again, this is how he felt about this. He loved this. So it's absolutely representative of Donald Trump and a lot of his followers. And you know from these court cases as well against the January 6th rioters that they were proud to be there. They were proud to be there. Oh, yes. Oh, I'm on the steps. I'm taking over the Capitol. We took over the Capitol building. You have live streamers in there. Right-wingers that are like, "I'm proud to be here. This is great." And then later on, they're like, "What? No, me? No, it was secret Antifa. It was the FBI." Insane. So, now look. Here she said this too, quote, at the end, "Amazing times, the end of liberty." No. The end of liberty would have been if you had actually succeeded in taking over the presidency. Again, you didn't win the election. Yeah, of course we would have been upset about that, but that wouldn't have been the end of democracy. This would have been the end of democracy, the actual end of liberty. If the Republicans just decided, we're going to take power, and they were successful. But again, you want to tell me that Clarence Thomas had no idea what his wife was doing at this time? That they didn't talk about this, they didn't talk about work, didn't talk about the election? Now, of course, I'm speculating here. I'm honest about that. I don't have any proof. But you don't think they talked about this at all? I doubt it very much. I think he knew about the efforts, and I think he was in some quiet support of those efforts. And if that is the case, If you're on the Supreme Court and you support an effort to overturn an election, knowing that there is no legal constitutional vehicle for doing that, and not only that, but dissenting to the majority, not wanting to hear cases, well, again, it's very rare for Justice Thomas to dissent, much less say anything. And yet here he is. And it's also worth noting that Thomas was a lone dissent when the SCOTUS authorized the National Archives to release documentation to the January 6th committee. Those documents showed fake electors, battleground states. They had certified, even for Trump, even though Trump did not win those states. They used, some of them, the official state seal. And we're saying, oh, yeah, no, Donald Trump won the election. He was the only person to dissent on that. The only person. Gee, I wonder why. I mean, he never explained why. Never explained. Now, another point here is that it's important to note that she is a member of many different right-wing groups. Generally, I generally wouldn't have a problem with that. Or you're a member of a right-wing group, who cares, right? Now, the thing is, not so much that she wanted to join these groups. The problem is why they wanted her to join them. A current member of the Conservative Action Project who defended the January 6 rioters. And what happened, as well as Trump Inner Circle from the January 6 Select Committee, told journalist Jane Mayer, and this is on the condition of anonymity, quote, that Ginny Thomas is part of the group not because of her qualifications, but because simply she is married to Clarence, a Supreme Court justice. The member had asked to have his name withheld because he said that Ginny is volatile and becomes edgy when challenged. No kidding. He added the best word to describe her is tribal. Well, insane. You're either part of the group or you're the enemy. And we definitely have seen that. And again, that's some of the texts that we've seen. At the very least, Clarence Thomas needs to recuse himself from anything related to this. I would like for him to resign, simply put. And, I don't know, for Merrick Garland, maybe he'll start looking into this a little bit. As well as, of course, Mo Brooks being asked by Donald Trump, because this is clearly a conspiracy, immediately to remove Joe Biden from the White House and immediately put Trump back into the White House and hold a special election. Now, is Merrick Garland going to do something about this? Is he? I'll believe it when I see it. But I would love to see something. Somebody be held accountable for all of this. Because it wasn't just Donald Trump. There was a lot of other people that were involved. Even up to the highest points of the highest court in the land. They got to do something.